Welcome to the Gridiron Stud Show. Chad Wilson and Emil Calamino here with you. Emil, it's bowl season. That's where we are. Bowl season. Are you excited? It's bowl season, man.
I'm excited because this is the time of year where the rubber meets the road in the NFL. I'm excited for the college football playoff games, which I think have the potential. I don't want to jinx it, to be pretty good. The Bulls themselves, we're the same age group. They've lost their luster.
Yes. All right. We'll get into that and much more NFL and college football content. This is our College Bowl pick show. So if you've been a long-time follower, then you know that I pick 10 games, Emil picks 10 games, and together we get you to retire at the end of that because we really do well in the bowl season. Forget about our regular season records, okay? It ain't about regular season, okay? We're like the college basketball team that was so-so or maybe not so good all year long, and they won the conference tournament, and then they get into the big tournament and make noise. That's us when it comes to college.
Well, actually, last bowl season, I think we were 13-7, which, combined, that's not bad.
Yes, it is extremely profitable to go 13-7 during the bowl season if you know what you're doing. All right, if it's your first time here, go ahead and subscribe to the show. If you're watching on YouTube, you already know what to do. Hit that button, hit the bell so that you don't miss out on the next one, the next show that comes out like this one. If you're listening to us on Anchor, Apple, Spotify, whatever you are using to stream your podcast, go ahead and hit the subscribe button there so you don't miss out on our next show. If you want to follow us on social media, you can find Emil on Facebook, EMIL CALOMINO. He will literally, like we say every week, talk to you about anything. And I'm not joking about that. All right. The guy will conversate with you on literally any topic. If you want to find me on social media, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Gridiron Studs, keep it real simple. You can find me there. Also, it is, again, that time of year. We're heading to the NFL. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty in the NFL. The college bowls are here. We got NBA going, NHL going, World Cup going. It is a great time of year, and that's a good time for you to check out our sponsor, Bovada Sportsbook. Been around for a long time. Great customer service, great sign-on bonuses, great odds, great all the way around. So check out Bovada. We'll have a link in the description to the show right there. This is your time of year to be hitting those guys up if you're so inclined. All right, Emil, let's jump into this thing. We've got the new format. We ask questions on here. We've got one we didn't put down here before the show. It just hit me in the head, and so I'm going to hit you with it. Emil, did the committee get the 4 teams right in the college football playoff?
I don't like how they got to the 4 teams per se, but I believe they did get them right. So it's a double-edged question, right? You set up a system where you've basically rewarded teams for not getting to the conference championship game. And that's why I'm so excited, not to go off on a tangent, to get to the 12-team playoff, because I think it will eliminate some of this.
This year would have been a great year to have the 12
Great year. 5 teams would get in automatically by winning their conference, which means Kansas State would be in, Utah would be in. But you would have 7 at large, and you wouldn't be penalizing a USC for playing, where Ohio State sat home and benefited by not having as successful a regular season. Whether they're better or not is a different question, okay? That said, I think they got the right 4 teams. If you say to me, who are the 4 best teams in the country, even though Ohio State, in one game really did get boat raced by Michigan.
At home, by the way.
Pardon?
At home, by the way.
At home. But I think they're one of the 4 best teams. And I'll be honest, and I've said this all along, so anybody who consistently listens to the show, I don't like my team to lose, so I'm not going to pretend that. But I'm okay with USC not making it. They weren't there yet, especially along the lines, and I think that became evident as Caleb Williams pulled that hamstring. He was able. He's such a good player. He's such a dynamic player. He masked a lot of the issues USC had defensively because of his offensive and their offensive prowess.
I don't think we wanted to see this team as it stands now against Georgia.
No, and I'm a dire, but listen, they played that game. Andrew Voorhees, who's probably a first-round NFL pick, couldn't go at game time, so they were down 1 starting lineman. Nealon went down later in the game, the center. By the end of that game, they were playing with 2 backup offensive linemen, and Khalib couldn't move. It was like a jailbreak once they had a pass. I don't want to see that, like you said, against the Georgia. And I'm a realistic fan. They've had a phenomenal season. So I think if you're saying, did they get the 4 teams that deserve to be there? Yes. I just don't like how Ohio State got there.
If cut Ohio State out, who would be that 4th team? Who should have been that 4th team?
Well, that goes back to the question of, I don't think the should have been would have been you set the playoff field this year and say, well, listen, the 4 teams playing that are top 4 right now are all in conference championship games. The field's set. We're playing for seeding, which would mean USC would still be in there. But I don't think USC should be in there. So do you see what I'm saying? I think they got to the right answer the wrong way.
I hear you. Here's one of the things that I heard out there. And it came out of the Godfather's mouth himself, who said, if we were in the college football playoff, we would be favored against all but Georgia. Should the sports book, should the lines makers be the ones that would pick bowl opponents?
No, because as you know,
the college football playoff,
from our experience there, the line is set in a couple of ways. Part of it is your power ranking, but part of it is they're trying to get even money on the game. So they're going to hang a number out there that they feel gets them close to 50-50 if they get it right, split on action. And they know Alabama's a very popular betting team, not necessarily. And I'm not sure I agree with that against Michigan. I think they'd be favored against TCU for sure. And on a neutral field, I'm not even so sure they'd be favored against Ohio State this year. I mean, we're turning Ohio State into garbage based on one bad second half against Michigan. The score was 20.
I think they're going to enter this thing highly motivated if they continue to listen to all that.
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Ohio State's got as good a roster as far as NFL caliber talent as anybody in that field.
Yeah, and that's part of why the title of last week's show was Ryan Day a fraud in it. So we did.
Yeah. So what I'm saying about Nick
that.
there, Nick is saying something that most years is probably true. This year, probably not. I mean, I think on a neutral field, people realize, hey, Ohio State was up 3 points at half against Michigan. They played a horrible second half. I think Ohio State's better than Alabama.
Yeah, I don't even know that Coach Saban really felt strongly about the argument that he was making. I feel like he felt like he needed to do that. He needed to defend his team, his program, his players, and say some of the things that he said. But deep down inside, if he'd have been skipped over for an Alabama team,
what's Alabama's big win this year?
They don't have one that really sticks out in my mind. I mean, the 2 big mega games that they were in, they basically lost. I guess you could call Texas one, and they almost lost that one. So
Texas, I mean, to be fair too, Texas played that whole second half without their starting quarterback. I mean, and Alabama won by 1. What I'm trying to say is, it's funny. I think Nick's trying to defend his program, but I think he's also talking in circles. He's saying we lost 2 games, 1 by 3 points and 1 by 1 point. Okay, fair enough. You also beat Texas by 1 point. Their kicker missed a 20-yard field goal at the end of the first half, and they played with their backup quarterback. You beat a very bad Texas A&M team by 4 points, and they were throwing balls into your end zone from the 10-yard line.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I didn't hear this myself and didn't have a chance to run down this quote, but I'd heard before all of the matchups were set and Saban was answering the question about whether or not they should be in there. He mentioned TCU and said they had a bad loss against a bad team. Alabama's playing that bad team that they had that loss against. Wow. I could see how that would be pinned up in.
Yeah. And I think he probably, because he's usually careful, he probably regrets that to a degree. Because first of all, Kansas State's not a bad team.
Yeah, I do want to say I didn't have a chance to run that down. Doesn't sound like the kind of words he would use.
No, because
he may have intimated something along those lines. Look, when you're getting ready for these bowl games, you're looking for anything. So,
but I mean, how do you call? I mean, even Nick's. I mean, he. It just doesn't sound like he's.
I guess a bad loss. I guess is what he was calling it because Kansas State was a 3-loss team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they lost to Tulane, who's 11-2 by a score early in the year. They lost a 1-score game to Texas that they almost came back and won. So he lost the 1-score game to Texas also, or he beat Texas by a point, excuse me. And they lost to a TCU team that they eventually beat for the conference championship.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know that he had a real argument there. He kept getting asked the question and put on camera, so I guess he.
I was glad I was worried they were going to screw TCU, and I really felt, based on how TCU played in that championship game, that would have been a true injustice.
I did not feel like, I thought the real thing there was for that 4th place spot. I didn't think they would do TCU that way. I think people are hungry for a little bit of a change in that college football playoff. So if you would have done something like pull TCU out of it and slide Ohio State and Alabama in there, I think the public at large would have been really, really pissed about that. So let's leave TCU in there. Let's see what they can do. And like you said, man, this is going to be quite interesting. If nothing else, it's just kind of some new faces in there. I got another question for you. We're headed into the college football playoff, which is supposed to be the biggest thing in the college football season. But everything that dominated the headlines this past week, Emil, was about the transfer portal. We've talked about it a lot on this show. In your opinion, Emil, has the transfer portal worked?
It's worked for some teams that have done well in it, the better teams. But I mean, 19,000 kids have entered the portal in the last 3 years, and 40% found new teams. So quick math tells you what, that's about 11 to 12,000 kids that went in with a scholarship and left with nothing. I mean,
I think the answer to that question is, if you're asking who,
who did it help?
College football has won, because it has just added another thing into the mix that has been, for lack of a better term, controversial, and has caused people to talk ad nauseum about college football. This is kind of why I think college football has never won at a true playoff, is because all of this back and forth at the end of the year is keeping college football on people's minds. They've got that second thing now with the transfer portal and all the moving around. Emil, it's been completely obscene, the amount of movement. It's like, literally, I feel like, and again, I guess sometimes your Twitter timeline can seem like the world, and obviously in the world and business that I'm in, that's what I'm getting constantly. It seems like 50% of everyone's rosters in the portal.
It is, and that because it doesn't seem like that. I mean, if you had 19,000 kids go through in 3 years, you do them. I mean, that's quite a bit. I don't know what to make of it at this point. I mean, it's there to stay, it seems. I do think they need to change the timeline of when kids can enter. I don't think you should be able to enter until the bowls are done. Otherwise, and I think I sent you that article that one of the insiders in college football, one of the coaches suggested, we're going to get to the point where teams start pulling out of bowls, because what fans don't realize is when your numbers get low enough, it's unhealthy to practice. I've been trying to explain that to people who said to me, well, okay, so what? You were going to play the bowls. Now you're playing with younger kids. And I said, listen, when you start getting your numbers down into the 50s or even high 40s,
tough to have practice.
Yeah, those practice, they're not beneficial anymore. They become glorified walkthroughs because you can't hit. You can't do anything where you're live, where you're firing live.
Well, in the case of kids that go to Michigan, that's probably a good thing, because, Jimmy will turn it into spring practice.
Right, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, you can't do a lot of your drills become more like walkthroughs. And at that point, a lot of coaches are going to say, well, if I'm going to do that for 3 weeks, I'm not getting anything out of it. We just won't play the bowl game.
The big pushback on that is going to be, well, we put no such limitations on the coaches. The coaches get to up and leave. And to that point, Emil, I want to say, was it Monday morning, Tuesday morning? I woke up to the news of Scott Satterfield, leaving Louisville to go coach Cincinnati, who, oh, by the way, is their bowl opponent in Louisville. This has never happened, I think, in my lifetime, and it just shows where we are in college football.
I mean, in some ways, I feel like, and it could be an
SNL skit. This right now. It's an SNL skit. Right.
It really is, but here's the thing. In some ways, I don't know if it's an age thing with us, but I don't think it is, because I've talked to enough people that love college football, and many feel the same way. I feel like the sport's kind of a little bit of a mess right now.
A little.
I'm trying to be kind.
No, man, it's a ghetto right now. Things are just ridiculous. Coaches are moving around. By the way, Satterfield was out on the trail last week trying to get kids to come to Louisville. I mean, so you know what the rhetoric is when you're sitting in someone's home or you're on the phone with them. You're telling them how great the place is, how much they need to be there, how much you want them to be a guy and a part of the family that we have here, and then you packed the truck up and you went 100 miles over to Cincinnati.
Right. And that's why it's very hard at this point to make any argument from the other side. To your point earlier on the portal question, it becomes very difficult at this point to make a counter argument to stopping kids from leaving whenever they want, because we're just letting coaches do it.
There's
Like you
literally
said,
no trust at all. A commitment, an offer means nothing.
nothing.
A kid's commitment means nothing. At this point now, a kid signing to your school means nothing because he can leave a year from now. Nothing means nothing. I think that was a line from Macho Man.
Yeah, but I also think and this, we're going to have to eventually cut this question off because you and I might get into a whole other show. But I mean, this to me is just a microcosm of society and where we're at as a society. We've sold our souls. And, you and I talk privately in our little conversations. And I said, I feel like we're on the back end of an empire as a nation. And, almost like the end of the Roman Empire, we have complete debauchery everywhere. And this is one part of it. We're seeing it, everybody's trying to get every dollar out of everything, whether it's the coaches, the universities, the NCAA who runs the sport, the kids trying to sell their name.
It really seems like that game Hungry Hippo that we knew growing up. If you're younger and have no idea what I'm talking about, just YouTube it or even go on Google and look at it. That's really, really what it looks like. And we haven't even really got into the whole shopping in the transfer portal yet. We've only loaded the goods into the transfer portal. Wait till we get to the point where like teams really start shopping in there. And that's just going to be entirely really, really crazy. So that I don't sound like super get off my lawn old guy here, I do sympathize with the players in that you have this limited time at which to maximize your talent. And so if you're at a school and you feel like there isn't a path for you here to your goals, which first of all is being a starter and getting on the field, and second is performing well enough to have a chance to go and get paid professionally, which sounds funny now because they get paid at this level, but get paid professionally as a career to do this, it gets to be, there can be some desperation there. And so,
but JT Daniels has been treated better by the transfer portal than the United States Navy would have treated him. He's seen the whole country. He saw the palm trees of Southern California. He's seen the hedges of Georgia, the coal mines, and the mountains up in West Virginia.
I mean, he's a poster child, really, for the transfer portal. Starts at USC, goes to Georgia, goes to West Virginia, and now he's in the portal once again, looking for his fourth spot. Rumor out there was that when leaving Georgia, he asked for a home from Oregon State. There's a rumor now. This is not fact. It's not, and I'm not reporting it as such, but yeah, asked for a home, which was denied, but I believe he got six-figure.
Listen, he's played for more teams than one of those little pot-belly lefties when we were kids that when they were 39 years old, they'd be throwing 82-mile-an-hour curveballs, slurs for every team in the league. He's played for them all.
Yeah, the guy is Ricky Henderson at the end of his career.
Yes.
At this point. So,
well, enough with you asking me questions. I got a few for you.
I'm here and ready.
These are coaching questions. Okay, now the rumor is that perhaps the next head coach at Stanford University is one Jason Garrett, my former favorite coach of the Dallas Cowboys. What do you think about that?
Off the top of my head, a good move. You're taking a guy that's been at the upper levels. We know Jason Garrett's background is academic. Correct. And
Princeton. He's a Princeton grad.
The Princeton guy. So he's going to understand the dynamic there. So you're not going to have a guy floating in there that's just totally clueless and, coming from one of these other super aggressive football programs. He's going to understand that dynamic of it. He may connect with the type of prospect that you would need to get into Stanford. And I'm here to tell you, in all of this craziness that we're talking about with transfer portals and high school recruiting and 5-stars and NILs, Stanford's not really a part of that. It's very difficult, even as a recruit that's highly talented in the game of football, to get in there. So I think it takes a special kind of person.
And I will say this, all kidding aside, I mean, I'm kind of making light of it. I like Jason Garrett, the person, and he's a high caliber guy, a high character type of.
He's an NFL head coach, Emil. So
yeah,
they tend to work out well when they go back down. So
no, I think it's a good move. All kidding aside, no, I do. I agree with you.
Yeah, okay, there are very few people that are going to fit very nicely into that job. So
no, and you know, like you hit the key points, and I think that's what they like. He's obviously got the acumen. He was a longtime NFL head coach, but he also comes from a background that he'll understand the dynamic and the challenges.
Yeah, he'll get it. Yeah.
And the good thing for him is, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way, if he can consistently go 7-5, 8-4, and throw an occasional 10-win season in there, they'll love him.
Yeah, absolutely. We asked this at the top. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this, but do you care about the Bulls, Emil?
Generally, no. I mean, not like in every year we cover this, and every year I sound like you said, the guy on the lawn, get off my lawn. But as someone who really loved bowl games for much of their adult life, I can't watch these with any sort of invested emotional interest in who wins, because I understand that a lot of these now come down to what team is motivated, how many guys are sitting out. You know, I mean, there's so many things that go into a bowl game, and to me, I look at it more as a glorified spring game, only you get to play an opponent. So
I'm wondering, Emil, if the early bowl games are going to end up being the better product.
I think they may, just because you have teams that really want to be there.
Yeah, I think we may end up in that situation, even though some of the opting out has trickled into some of the, I don't want to say smaller programs, but less celebrated programs. But maybe that's where we get the good games. I remember last year, a game between whoever Purdue played in their bowl game last year ended up being a really, really good game, back and forth game. It just happened to be at the time of year where people would be out shopping, and there's less people able to sit down and really pay attention to a bowl. But I have a feeling that the early bowl games are probably going to be where you're going to get the most.
Well, yeah, sadly, I don't care much. I don't care much about the New Year's Day games the way I used to, or the post.
Oh, that's what hurts the most, Emil, because I'd carve out that whole New Year's Day, bake cookies, and I'd park myself in front of the TV, and it started at 11 a.m. with the Outback Bowl and ended with the Orange Bowl that would get the 8:30 start, and it's just not going to be that anymore. First of all, they don't even put all those games on anyway.
And you just know that a lot of these are money games. I mean, these teams have to go, they have to play because the money at stake for the conference. And again, and that's why you and I we've done pretty well, I think, over the years handicapping these, is what fans don't get. You hear fans giving each other a hard time over a bowl game win anymore. And unless it's a game where something's at stake, you got to really judge motivation.
Yeah, meaningless. If you've got guys on there that are potential NFL guys, if they decide to play, they're thinking about not getting hurt. And I lived through that. My oldest.
Well, look at the game last year. I specifically remember it. On paper, it looked like a pretty good game. Pitt was playing Michigan State. Game starts, Pitt's quarterback's not playing. Okay.
And Walker didn't play for Michigan State.
Right. And I was going to say that. So the two best players in the game that are both in the NFL now weren't even participating. So again, I think Michigan.
So what happens now, Emil? You have that kind of situation, and then the guy who was the backup, because no one wants to be a backup anymore, is in the transfer portal. Is he going to play in a game?
That's the risk that people don't understand. You have enough kids it's a great point you make. That's where people don't get. You're going to have teams that say, hey, we really don't have a quarterback.
One of these sports books ought to set an over-under on bowl pullouts. I think we get at least one.
Well, last year we had UCLA pull out of the game with NC State. Now that was COVID driven, they said. I mean,
yeah, sure. And we did have who was it? Kansas, or was it Missouri, said they didn't want to play Kansas, something like that.
Missouri and Kansas used to play every year because it's a border game. I mean,
Sure.
that was 100-year rivalry, and I guess
I just
Missouri,
think we do
because
get that, because you imagine you go for bowl week, you're in a foreign place, and some kind of flu or illness runs throughout your team where I don't care who you are, you've suffered some kind of attrition to the transfer portal. So you're already up there with light numbers, and you just need a couple of key backups or guys to get sick. And then this bowl game is not something you want to do anymore.
no,
We're going to get at least one.
we're gonna get one.
I'm calling it
listen,
right here on the show.
We have to give out picks, so we have one more question here because I get to ask you another one. You've been hitting me hard. I owe you one question here, and this is one you have to be honest with me.
Okay.
Because this is like your favorite. Well, maybe Eric Dickerson. I don't know who's your favorite. This close. You're a big Deion Sanders fan.
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts on Deion Sanders to Colorado.
I would not bet. He's one of them guys you just don't bet against. I've not seen anything that Deion Sanders has taken on in his life that he has not excelled at, or he might tell you a couple of marriages, like he said in his opening or his closing press conference with Jackson State. Maybe marriage is not his thing, but in terms of anything sports wise, he's really maximized all of that stuff. So when I look at what he was able to do at Jackson State in terms of getting the most out of his players and being able to bring publicity, I would say he kind of, Emil, has that kind of same situation at Colorado. And according to reports, he had multiple offers on the table. And initially, I thought USF would probably be a good place for him. He is a Florida guy, and he could probably do well in recruiting there. But in hindsight, I think the Colorado job kind of resembles the situation that he walked into in Jackson State. Colorado is a dead program football-wise, and he has an opportunity in there doing what he does media-wise, bringing attention, marketing. He's a genius at that, to bring attention to Colorado. So now maybe high school kids that would not have gone there now want to go there. He's obviously going to be really, really big in the transfer portal. He's going to have more of an access, I think, to the transfer portal than he did at Jackson State. So I see there being a chance for success, and the bar is low at Colorado.
And you know what else I think is interesting, right? If you think about it, the one impediment now that they've risen from the ashes with Lincoln Riley would be a USC, and they're leaving the conference. So now,
yes,
he has the star power of Deion, and he doesn't have to battle the star coach at USC with the star program with the history, because they're gone off to the Big Ten.
And maybe that was part of the attraction to the job. We'll never really know the answer.
Sure, you'll never know. I don't think he'd ever say that, but if
Yeah.
you think about it, it's like, I don't have to compete with these guys anymore. They're off to the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I do want to say this because it is, irritated me, but I don't always go public with feelings like this, but I was just super annoyed by all of the criticism that Deion received upon leaving Jackson State. I saw a man that came in and took a job, whatever you think the original reason was for him coming in there, whether it was because all these other schools denied him and Jackson State was the only one that would give him that opportunity, or he was using it for a springboard, whatever the case may be. We all have careers, and everyone wants to ascend to the highest point that they can in their career. So, being at Jackson State is not it. Maybe because of Deion's influence down the road, Jackson State can be looked at something like that. I know this. He went in there, dominated the opportunity, and he's leaving Jackson State a better place than how he met it. And that's really all that you can ask for. So that this guy decides now he wants to move on to the next level and continue to advance in his career, and he's taking heat for it. I got to explain this to people. He's in the coaching profession. Deion Sanders is 55. He's not 35. He doesn't have time to really, I don't want to use the term waste, but yeah, he can't really do what a 35-year-old would and spend 5, 7, 10 years somewhere. That's not going to happen. He won't do that at Colorado. He's not going to finish his coaching career at Colorado. He's either going to get fired there or he's going to ascend. I think he's going to have success there. If we're defining what success is for Colorado, on our end of it, that is, I would say, back-to-back winning seasons, and playing and playing in the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, I think
would
that's
call that
reasonable.
Yeah, multiple winning seasons because they just haven't had them. They've been
No.
horrendous. I mean, and when I was going into college football, Colorado was a premier program. They won a championship
Yeah,
around.
they had a nice 6 or 7 year run
They did.
of good teams.
And it just boiled down to getting the right players. They went into Los Angeles and got quarterbacks and running backs, and guys on defense.
And don't forget, that was in the very tail end of the 80s into the early 90s.
Yes.
And again, what that coincided with, you see, you use the word Los Angeles. That period was that dark period of USC football. They weren't very good.
Yeah, and people picked away. So maybe same kind of a situation here. So
okay,
yeah,
well, listen, now it's time we have to
successful.
give these guys some winners. Okay. Let's do this. Here's your job, though. I'm going to give 5, you give 5. Then I give 5, you give 5. We're going to give 10 bowl games out, okay?
All right, and you're going to kick it off?
I need you on the lines today. Okay?
All right, I'm the lines guy. The accountant has put me on the numbers, folks.
Quickly
hang
recap.
on. This has the potential to go completely left. But anyway.
Okay, you ready? I'm going to give last week's recap quickly.
Sure.
I think we were both 2-1 last week.
Were we? I think, was I?
Yes,
yeah, I was.
Chad had a winner on Kansas State and a winner on Georgia. 2 nice picks. Kansas State getting the outright for the Big 12 title. He took a loss on my men at Troy. I might have to blame you for jinxing them, like I do with my wife.
And it started off so nice.
It did. But then once that hamstring, we didn't know the hamstring was bad on the run, but at 17-3, when USC got that fumble, you could tell on that drive because they were on the Utah 40, and you're thinking, man, touchdown here, this thing might be over, 24-3. Khalib was way all over the map throwing the ball on that drive, and something was up. You could start to see the limp, and it got progressively worse, and from that point, it was bad. But hey, 2-1, you're up to 18-23 and a push this 18-23-1. So big bowl season, you go by 500. I was 2-1. I had a winner on Fresno State outright over Boise. I had a winner on Georgia with you, and then I got hosed. I was going to win that Purdue game, and Michigan walked in the front door on me. It was 36-22 late in the fourth quarter. I'm getting 16.5, and Michigan said, you know what? We need to win this one by 3 touchdowns and put a stamp on it.
Freaking Jimmy.
So I'm 20-22 on the season. So let's give out some winners so we don't have to talk about after the bowl season being under 500 in college.
There you go. You're kicking it off. So your first 5.
Give me the line, please, on the Fresno State, Washington State game.
Well, let's see if we could find that bad boy. Fresno State and Washington State. Coming
Fresno
right.
-1. Does that sound good?
I've got Washington State -1.
Okay, so I'm going to take the point and Fresno State. This game to me, and I said this last week when I took Fresno State, they quietly got their starting quarterback back.
I like that guy.
I do. Kid has moxie. They won 8 games in a row. They showed you they still care about the season. I think for a program like Fresno, winning 10 games means something to them. Finishing the season on a 9-game win streak means something. Washington State lost the Apple Cup. They're 7-5. They're playing out the string at this point. I don't see the motivation here for Washington State. So for me, let's roll with Fresno State +1 to win this game.
All righty. Fresno State +1. First one in the bank. Here we go.
What do you got in the Toledo Liberty game?
Toledo versus Liberty. That is Toledo -4.5.
I say holy Toledo.
In the Boca Raton Bowl, by the way.
Yes, I'm all over Toledo. I just think Liberty has shown you at the end of the season that this season's over. They're done. Okay. And again, to me, Toledo's the type of program, they go into these bowl games. Winning a game is going to mean something here. Liberty's got a lot of moving parts, coaching and everything else. To me, they're just going to this game, and I don't think they can get that. They beat Arkansas this year. I don't think they're going to take Toledo as seriously as they probably should. And I think Toledo. I actually see this game being a blowout for Toledo.
Wow, Okay, Toledo -4.5.
Okay, next. Give me a line on Baylor and Air Force.
-6.5 in the Armed Forces Bowl. Be very careful now. Air Force and the Armed Forces Bowl. Interested in seeing where
May
you
the
go.
force be with you. I want Air Force +6.5.
There you go. You know what? I have found the academies, especially Air Force, I'm going to look this up, to be a really good bet in these bowl games.
Yeah, they play really good defense at Air Force. That's lost this year. They have had a good defensive football team. You've got a Baylor team that's been at or near, at the top or near the top of the Big 12 conference for the last couple of years. They're finishing out what is a disappointing 6-6 season. I can't see them heading to this game in Texas incredibly motivated. Okay. It's in Fort Worth, which is probably, I think, an hour and a half for them. It's just like another game. And one thing with the academies, they're always motivated. So
yeah, they're going to play hard.
They
That's
play
the
hard.
good thing.
I'm taking Air Force plus the 6.5. I think they got real carried away with that line.
All right.
Next,
so, Air Force.
Give me a line on the Arkansas Kansas game.
Arkansas, Kansas. What are we talking about here? Arkansas, Kansas currently has Arkansas as a 3-point favorite.
Yeah, I want the chalk on this one. Give me Arkansas -3. I just think this is a game where they have too much physical talent, and this coach had this program going in the right direction coming into this year. I feel they've underachieved, and I think they're going to want to get the bad taste out of their mouth. And again, they're playing a Kansas team that started off well, but the season kind of, let's face it, a 6-win season at Kansas recently is pretty good. But as the season went on, they started to look to me more and more like Kansas. Maybe not to the depths of where that program's been, but I think they played over their head early is what I'm saying. And I just think Arkansas goes out. They don't have to win this game big. I just think they take care of business and get the job done. So give me Arkansas -3.
Arkansas -3. Fifth one coming up.
And finally, Minnesota, Syracuse. What do you got? About 7.5 on that?
Minnesota, Syracuse. I think you're right on that. No, it's actually 7.
Okay, good. I don't have to lay the hook. I want Minnesota -7. Fleck just signed a contract extension. Team's 8-4. Goes into the offseason, springboards in. Syracuse, as the year went on, especially after they took that close loss at Clemson, they've looked worse and worse as the season has gone on. And I just think at this point, they're not a very good football team. And I think Minnesota's got their coach back. They've got stability in the program. He seems to have that program on an upward trajectory from what, say 10 years ago, what Minnesota was. So I feel this is a good way to springboard into his offseason. He'll want to get the W. Give me Minnesota -7.
All right. So recapping, Fresno State +1, Toledo -4.5, Air Force +6.5, Arkansas laying a field goal, and Minnesota laying a touchdown.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. So let me jump into some lines here. I'm going early on here with Missouri taking on a team that actually wanted to play them in Wake Forest. Let me see if I could find my number here on this one. But I found it interesting that Kansas didn't want. Did we even get a reason as to why that happened?
Mizzou didn't want to play Kansas, I don't think.
Yeah, it's one. Yeah, I think they
didn't see a benefit to it because they're in the SEC. They lose an old border game to a team in the Big 12. It doesn't look good probably for recruiting.
I don't know if that was the stated reason, but sure. Okay. I am going to roll with Wake Forest in this one. Missouri's kind of cashing in on, their tough little game that they played earlier this year against Georgia. And then, a couple of successes they had towards the end of the year. I'm just not sure if they're that team. They're a 6-6 football team. One of the big things you want to kind of hang your hat on in the College Bowl season is a team that has offense. I've been in those. I've made those bowl picks before where you're trying to rely on a team that's all about defense, man, and it ends up being a really bad deal.
Yeah.
Offense kind of rules the day in this thing until you start getting to the meaningful games at the end of the bowl season. Early on, you got to have some offense. Wake Forest has more of it. I like them. as a 1-point favorite.
Okay.
Moving along, Duke and UCF. Hey, believe it or not, this season did not go the way that UCF wanted it. I think they firmly felt like they would be the conference champions. You know, they think very highly of themselves over there in Central Florida.
Yeah, it does seem that way.
Yeah, defending national champion Central Florida from years ago. And this, in their mind, Emil, this is kind of a bit of a step down in terms of bowl opponents for them when they've got to go take on a Duke, who people still don't necessarily respect yet. But Duke had a very respectable year at 8-4. Duke is a 1-point favorite in this. I think they should be bigger than that. This is a solid football team that played really good football for most of the year. Again, they're 8-4, and for once in a long time, UCF is going to face a very motivated bowl opponent, and I think Duke walks out of this thing with.
And what's the line on that, Chad?
-1 in favor of Duke.
Yeah, okay. So you're staying on these games that are almost pick 'em. So you got Duke -1. What else?
Yeah, I just need a winner in those games.
That's right.
All right, and something that we don't normally do here on this show. I'm on the other side of one of your picks here. Kansas and Arkansas. I'm just kind of relying on the kind of team that Kansas was for the majority of the year. Yes, they had their hiccups, but this is a 6-6 football team that's going to be super ultra happy to be in this bowl game. Yes, I know they closed out the year with 3 straight losses. They played some tough teams there. Kansas State, who was on their way to the championship. Texas is a tough deal if you're a Kansas. And Texas Tech played really good ball down the road. But I think with some time off, Kansas can kind of summon the things that were good here. Arkansas, I think, probably had higher aspirations for their season. I know I did. I expected a little better things for them, and they had the quarterback coming back and all that. And I just don't think things went the way that they want. And so I'm a little worried about them being at maximum intensity here. So I'm going to take Kansas, and the number is the 3. So I'm going to.
So we're on the opposite of 1. Okay.
So I'm gonna grab Kansas in this one. Moving on up. Now that I disagree, here's one where I agree with you. I agree with your assessment of the Syracuse and Minnesota thing. And I think if I'm not mistaken, Syracuse did not win away from home this year. They started off really, really well, and then they ended up falling a little bit, for lack of a better term, flat on their face, if I could say that. Yeah, they ended the year.
This one feels like really ugly to me. I just, for some reason, I think this game is going to get ugly.
I don't know. You know, Syracuse is a totally different team at home. And so they have shown that they have the power to really turn up on you and become a major problem. But I'm just really concerned about how they performed away from home. Let me correct myself. They did end the year with 1 win on the road, which was at Boston College, but by and large, away from home, they were terrible. All double-digit losses that they experienced, except for the one at Clemson. So they're not experienced in this bowl type of thing, where I think Minnesota more is. And while Minnesota was expecting more out of their season, I think they are in a situation as a program where they feel like they have something to prove, and they will do that in this game against Syracuse. So we agree on that one. I'm going to take Minnesota to lead the touchdown. And then my fifth pick before we jump into the next half of this thing is we're rolling into one of the bigger games here, and that's Purdue and LSU. Emil, you were all over Purdue, and I kind of felt your pick on Purdue against Michigan. And as you stated, you almost got that. You almost had it.
I did, but I didn't.
Yes. And so I saw a Purdue team that's willing to fight, that does have offense. And like I said, in these part of the bowl games, you want to have that. I like what they're showing there. LSU is going to come into this thing a little deflated. Now, did they expect to be in the college football playoff when they started the season? No. But when you go out and you beat down Florida, and you go and beat Alabama and things start moving in that direction, to not end up there because you fell flat on your face towards the end of the season, I think that might have a little bit of a carryover effect, whereas Purdue is not going to be as bummed about losing that Big Ten championship game. No one expected them to do that. And so I think from a motivation standpoint, Purdue's going to come into this thing pretty fired up. I'm just not sure what we're going to get out of LSU. LSU did not see themselves playing for lack of a better term, don't kill me, Boilermaker fans. They didn't see themselves playing an also ran from the Big Ten. I think they saw bigger things for themselves. So LSU gave up 50 and 38 in their final 2 games. Purdue's offense is coming for all those holes in LSU. So let me take the big points with Purdue getting 10.5 against LSU.
Okay, so recapping your first 5, you got Wake Forest +1. You've got Duke -1. You're on the opposite of me on this game. You got Kansas +3. Then we agree on this game. You got Minnesota -7. And finally, Purdue +10.5. I like that pick, by the way. I'm surprised I missed it.
Yeah, I think I don't know what LSU's bringing to the party. They can't be jazzed up for playing the Boilermaker.
Give me a number. I'm going on my next ones now. So give me a number on Florida State, Oklahoma. 7.5 sound right?
Yes, I think is the number, and I remember wanting to be on that game. And then
yeah, you got 2 programs right now headed in completely different directions, and I look at a Florida State.
The number is, by the way, 7.5.
Yeah, I look at a Florida State team that's coming into this game wanting to win 10 games. They haven't been in this position for quite a while. As far as their historically, they were always a very good program. They've been in a downtrodden way recently. They come in here looking for a 10-win season. Oklahoma comes into this game 6-6 with just the stench of an awful first season for Brent Venables. And to me, I just think Florida State's going to go out and drill Oklahoma in this game. So I'm easily laying the 7.5 with no qualms.
Florida State, Emil, in my opinion, I mean, they obviously had their hiccups earlier in the year. That's a team that could have gone into the college football playoff and potentially win a game. They were just playing so well at the end of the year. So all they've got to do is really carry that over. And if they do, I see this the same way that you do.
Yep.
So,
next game, what do you got? And I find this is an interesting matchup, even though it doesn't mean a lot. It's in the Sun Bowl. But what do you got in the UCLA Pitt game? 6?
UCLA 6.5.
Okay. I'm going to take UCLA and lay the 6.5.
How
about that? A Trojan taking the Bruins. If I'm not mistaken, I think Keaton Slovis, Pitt's quarterback's already in the transfer portal.
Yes, he is, by the way.
Okay, so, I look at UCLA.
Which is amazing.
Again.
Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, I look at UCLA comes into this game. Pitt had a good year last year. They won the ACC. They won 11 games. Their quarterback was taken in the first round. This has to be a downer for the kids that were there last year to go to the Sun Bowl. We know some teams, including my Trojans, have struggled to be motivated in this game. And then
It's been a terrible game for Pac-12 teams.
It is, but UCLA comes into this game looking for that 10-win season. And I think for Chip Kelly's gang, that's going to mean something. There's some kids leaving the program. I don't even know, if they have a couple kids sitting out. I don't care. I think Chip can get the kids motivated to get 10 wins because they've been down at UCLA, and a 10-3 season is a good year for them. And I think they get it here. So give me UCLA -6.5.
All right, UCLA, go double-digit wins, UCLA.
What do you got? The Golden Domers giving 3?
The Golden Domers, your favorite, non-favorite team. Mm-hmm. I think you faded them last bowl season, but
so they're giving 3. I'm going to take South Carolina plus the 3. I look at the way South Carolina closed the season. To me, this game means a lot more to South Carolina to come in here and close the season now, if they can, beating Tennessee, Clemson, and Notre Dame in a row. What a way to springboard, regardless of motivation or anything else, to springboard yourself into your next season, to close your 2022 campaign with those 3, scalps, if you will. Okay. And I look
good word, good choice there.
Yeah. I look at Notre Dame, they're 8-4. Okay. This is not a big game for Notre Dame. Being 9-4 at Notre Dame is nothing to get excited about. And now they've got to play a team that's really playing some of their best football at the end of the season. I don't see the Irish coming out here with their hair on fire. So I'm going to take South Carolina +3.
Who had South Carolina as an 8-4 football team, finishing ahead of, I believe, both Kentucky and Florida in the SEC East?
No, no.
Not I. Not I.
No, no. And then I'm going to go with give me the line on my Trojans against Tulane.
Your Trojans against Tulane. It is USC minus 1.5.
USC's favored, huh?
Yes, they are.
They must think Khalid Williams is going to play, but guess what? I'm going to take Tulane plus 1.5 here.
Wait, so you're telling me in the same day, in the same bowl season, Emil Calamino is going to take UCLA at a Sun Bowl and fade USC? Is this what you're telling me?
Listen, I'm a realist. I don't see the motivation for the Trojans in this game. You've got a Cotton Bowl game down in Jerry World. They'll probably be looking at the stadium, the kids that do play, walking around and enjoying this beautiful stadium. They look across and their coach has to convince them that they just went from losing the Pac-12 championship game and a spot in the college football playoff that they've got to get jacked up to beat Tulane, who is no different than UCF when they play in these bowl games. This is going to mean everything to Tulane because no motivation notwithstanding, they want to tell all their friends and their grandkids someday, we beat USC and Lincoln Riley. We beat him. We beat Khalid Williams, maybe the Heisman Trophy winner. I don't think he's going to play in this game. I still don't because I don't see the upside. But I like Tulane plus 1.5 to get the outright, obviously, at 1.5. So give me Tulane.
Sure. All right.
And then finally, give me a college football playoff game here. What's the line on the Georgia-Ohio State game?
The Georgia-Ohio State game number is, and you may find that one before me.
Plus 6.5 for Ohio State?
6.5 for Georgia.
Yeah, I'm taking Ohio State plus 6.5.
Are you really?
People have trashed Ohio State, including me, their coach. But here's the thing. If you look at these four teams, probably the only team who has, as far as NFL caliber talent, a roster close to Georgia is Ohio State. And, you know, they played one bad half of football against Michigan, an awful half at home. I get it. But all of a sudden, we're acting like this isn't a really good football team. They are. And you want to know something else? I've watched Georgia struggle with Kentucky. I've watched them struggle with Missouri. I watched them play with their food for a while against Georgia Tech. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, they better strap it up for this game because Ohio State has the athletes. And if they're clicking that night, Ohio State can win this game outright. So I'll gladly grab 6.5 points here.
That's a ballsy pick. I would not. You're stronger than me to do that. But yeah. All right. Ohio State plus 6.5. So recapping this, Florida State minus 7.5, UCLA minus 6.5, South Carolina to continue to stay hot as a 3-point underdog. Tulane versus the mighty Trojans, the mighty Emil Calamino Men of Troy Trojans, plus 1.5, Ohio State plus 6.5.
Yes.
That's what we're on. All right. I am going to go to the granddaddy of them all. Not that they even refer to it like that anymore, but Penn State is traveling to Los Angeles to take on Utah, who just won the Pac-12. And the line, tad disrespectful for me. I think Utah accomplished a lot of the things that they wanted to accomplish this season. I think they thought maybe, and I was there with them, thought that they might be that team to slide into the college football playoff from the Pac-12. We've been dying, Emil, to have that happen, have them show up to the whole college football party that's been happening over the last 5 years. But I think there are some advantages for them here. First of all, I think they come in motivated. I think they want to add, Rose Bowl champ to their resume for this year. You've not been in love with Penn State football. I've not been in love with Penn State football. I know that Utah is a heavy running team. I think Penn State is still giving up rush yards from that game earlier this season. This is a bad matchup for them unless they figure out something really fast and in a hurry. And, with a week or a month to prepare, who knows? I just think right now on paper, Utah the better team. I don't see them lacking any motivation here. So I'm going to take Utah as the small.
Yeah, and I think Kyle Whittingham is really good at playing different angles to motivate his team. Like, look at that Pac-12 championship. He somehow convinced the media and everybody that they were this, like, quote unquote underdog. I don't mean a Vegas underdog. And I'm sitting here going, wait a second. USC was picked third in the conference this year. They're coming off a 4-8 season. Everybody expected Utah to win that conference.
Sure. And if you've been around at a program as long as Whittingham has, you definitely have to be good at motivating your players. So,
Yep.
yeah,
I
kudos
like
to him
that
there.
pick.
I'm going to agree with you. Actually, no, let's slide to Kansas State and Alabama. I find this matchup intriguing, Emil. Alabama is in a position that they have not found themselves in very often during the Saban tenure. When they have found themselves in this position, Emil, they've not fared very well. It's kind of championship or bust with the program since they became mighty Alabama under Nick Saban. And I don't know that Nick Saban's troops will fully respect the Kansas State. It's not a playoff game. It's not facing Georgia or Ohio State or Clemson. This is going to be a tough deal for them. And then I know all about being in New Orleans and not respecting your opponent. I lived that nightmare. And Alabama has lived it too. I want to say, wasn't it against Utah that they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what are they in this game? A 3.5-point favorite?
3.5-point favorite. That line should be suspicious to people. I think it's going to draw a lot of Alabama money, and people are going to lose their shirt on it. I think Kansas State still has something to prove despite winning the Big 12 championship. I think if you can add defeating number 5 Alabama to their resume, they walk out of this thing feeling good on top of winning 11 games and being a Big 12 Big 12 champion.
Chad, this game feels so much like they're just a little bit mightier version of Tulane. It almost feels to me like the same as that Tulane USC game. It would mean so much for Kansas State to beat Alabama and mean very little for Alabama.
Literally nothing.
Yes.
And, Alabama's always flooded with pro players. How hard are they going to go? Are they going to want to take on cut blocks? Are they going to want to throw their heads in there? What's the motivation? Can't see it for them here. So I think Kansas State is on the move. All right, Tulane and USC, Emil. Do you see the hat that I have on here today? What does it say?
It says University of Southern California.
University
USC
of
Trojans.
Southern California, Los Angeles, Cardinal and gold.
It's a nice hat.
Hell of a season for these guys. And your potential Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. It's been amazing what Lincoln Riley has been able to come and do. USC is back, baby. They are actually leaving, but they're back.
Right.
Give me Tulane. Give me Tulane. 1.5-point underdogs in this game. Why is the line 1.5? It's Tulane. Like they're not.
Vegas knows what USC is bringing to this game, which is not a lot of effort.
Yes, they're definitely smelling what the Rock is cooking. You might as well have made Tulane a favorite in this game. We've seen it, like I said, with UCF. They beat Auburn. They almost beat LSU, was it? Or did they beat LSU? It's going to be that same kind of scenario. I can't imagine USC being at all interested in this game. You're in the Cotton Bowl. You're down there in Texas. You can get into some things. So I don't know if we're going to have a focus.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. As a USC fan, if somehow Lincoln Riley motivated this team to play well in this game, it might be his most impressive coaching performance of the season.
I would agree. There would be something to be said there if he can get his team to go out there and play like USC. I think that's just going to be very difficult. There's a lot of history on our side here with matchups like this one. Tulane is an 11-win football team this year that won a conference championship. They have a chance to go 12-2 and beat USC. They're going to be with their hair on fire in this game. Give me Tulane in this contest.
Give me Tulane, as Howard Cosell would say.
Give me Tulane. Get Tulane on the line. All right. I am going with the Clemson-Tennessee matchup, Emil. Clemson is a 6.5-point favorite. Quite frankly, just on paper, Clemson should be a 10-point favorite. Tennessee did not close out the year in the way that they looked like they were going to go. They lost their quarterback. A lot of woe is me there for Tennessee. Emil, Clemson did not have a Clemson type year. They benched their quarterback, who is another member in the portal right now, DJ Ugalele, if I said that right.
I don't even know how to say it, so you gave it a shot at least.
Yeah, benched him in the game. Backup quarterback comes in. Looks to be pretty nice, but this is not a Clemson type season, not a Clemson type bowl, not what Clemson is typically used to. And I'm not sure here if they are going to be on point. You're coming down here to Miami. You better be fully motivated as a team when you come down to Miami around the holidays. I'm just saying.
So you just think Tennessee wants to get that terrible taste out of their mouth. So you
Absolutely.
like Tennessee.
Yeah, I saw a little something. I mean, it was Vanderbilt, but they beat them 56-0. So they weren't really like cashing in all their chips for the season. They still have a really good football team. They have a good offense. It's just a different guy running it. And I think Tennessee really turns up here on Clemson. And I especially like them as an underdog.
Okay.
All right. So as the rules, Emil and I agreed to when we're going into this whole bowl thing, we have these backroom discussions. Part of it is we had to pick a college football playoff game. He went with the UGA versus Ohio State matchup. I'm going to jump on the other one, which is Michigan versus TCU. Michigan, and I got to say this, I'm, for some strange, odd reason, have been rooting for Jim Harbaugh. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why, but
I'm impressed. I'm impressed by him. I like what he did at Stanford. First of all, I like that a guy with a name like that entered into college football at a place like San Diego. Not San Diego State either. University of San Diego.
yeah.
Did his thing there, goes to Stanford, does it his way there, comes to Michigan, does it his way at Michigan. Didn't decide that I need 100 receivers on the field and do that whole thing. He came there and played Michigan football and won and has defeated the juggernaut of the conference. So for some odd reason, I can't even explain it. I've been rooting for them. I'm not in this game, though, by the way. I am looking at a TCU team that, yes, suffered some disappointment in their championship game. Now, were they not, if that knocked them out of the college football playoff, I might feel differently about how they were to come into this game. I think maybe they're too bumped, but they're still in the college football playoff. Everything they have in mind is still in front of them. And Emil, this is a team that's used to tough, close games. That's all they did all year long. And I don't think they're going to be intimidated by Michigan. I think they are a tough-minded team that's now motivated because they suffered that loss. And I think they're going to be able to go toe-to-toe here against Michigan, who I saw have some problems against Purdue. I think Purdue suffered more from lack of belief, much to your chagrin.
Yes.
TCU is not going to suffer from that. And I think they're going to be able to sit in here in this fist fight. And I think we get a field goal game.
And what do you got? 7.5, right?
I'm getting 7.5, quite a bit of chalk here, and I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it and enjoy it.
Well, let me recap this because we've got some NFL things to discuss. But before we go there, Chad's last 5 bowl picks: Utah -3 to win the Rose Bowl over Penn State, Kansas State +3.5 against an unmotivated Alabama team, Tulane +1.5 against an unmotivated USC team. You see the theme here?
Yeah.
Tennessee +6.5. And then finally, TCU +7.5 in the big college football playoff semifinal.
Yes, I think I have. What do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10 dogs. And I think you've got 1, 2, 3.
I think I took 5 myself.
4, 5. Yeah, 5 and 5. That's a balanced ticket, ladies.
That is a balanced ticket.
All right. And so with that, now we will slide off of the college football gridiron and avoid the transfer portal. Both Emil and I were a little too old for that. We're going to move on to the NFL field and jump into some things. There are a couple of questions to answer before we get into our picks, where, by the way, we are doing rather well in the NFL this year. We'll talk about that.
In this side of it, yes, we are.
Yes, we are. We are handling our business in the pro game. The semi-pro game, we've had our problems.
That's right.
All right. Okay. Looking at things, first thing I want to ask you is, we're getting down to the funny part of this year. We saw some things happen with Baltimore. Based on what you've seen with the Ravens, with Lamar Jackson, we all know that he's in this contract back and forth with the Ravens. Didn't get the contract before the season, bet on himself, went out there, and now he's hurt. That aside, it's nothing major. It's not career ending or anything like that. Would you long-term Lamar Jackson if you were the Baltimore Ravens?
In a vacuum, No. Because of the way the NFL works, yes. And here's what I hear. Let me explain. If you said, if I could make this decision in a vacuum, just would you? No, because I think here's the thing with Lamar. I don't think he does enough damage purely as a pocket passer. We both know as we age, no matter who you are, you're going to slow down a little. When you play the game he plays and you take the pounding he takes, because he does run the ball like a running back, you're going to end up being nicked up and eventually slowed down quicker. And I just don't think he's prolific enough of a consistent pocket passer to win games without that other aspect of his game. But I can't make this decision in a vacuum. And knowing the way the NFL works, if I don't have a viable plan B, which it doesn't appear they do, am I willing to flush a good roster? Because if I don't do that, then where do I go? I'm in a complete rebuild almost.
Yeah, you make probably a good point there. And yes, I would personally long-term him because first of all, you don't have another guy. What I would love to see, Emil, and this is kind of a common theme with black quarterbacks, it seems, in most places, is that if you've got this running ability, then there's this feeling that you don't need to be surrounded with much in terms of weapons. I say that also on the flip side, saying maybe free agent wide receivers aren't always eager to play with a quarterback that has a tendency to run. I don't know if that's what's going on. Whatever the case may be, he's not working with much. He doesn't have much out on the edges. He suffered some injuries there this season. His really big go-to guy, Mark Andrews, suffering through some injuries, just hasn't had the weaponry. I would love to see that for him and get a better evaluation. We're seeing that same thing happen in some other places, most notably in Chicago. I hope they go about fixing that, because while it's exciting to see Justin Fields running around like that, you just said it. It's not a long-term strategy at that position. But yes, the Ravens are going to have to sign this guy long-term and make a commitment to him. It's just, will it be on his terms? But yeah,
I mean, you see my point, what I'm trying to say. Like, I know that, you know, life doesn't, like, if you're asking the question, like, am I going to pay a guy that runs around like this, who's got a high potential to get hurt, am I going to pay him $45 million a year? Well, if I could just say yes or no, no.
Yeah,
but here's
understandable.
I can't just do that, because that's not how life works. What's their plan B? I don't see what they had. They don't have a plan B. So yeah, I'm going to pay them.
No, and you know, the draft is definitely hit or miss, even though the Ravens do better at the whole drafting thing than most teams.
Quarterback's tough though, unless you get even if you get a top pick, we've seen enough of them flame out and not do well. It's just,
and then who are you let's say the Ravens were going to go in a different direction and they're going to draft a quarterback. What are you offensively, and who fits into that? And you know,
well, yeah, you got to rebuild, because if it's a different style, unless you're lucky enough to find a similar quarterback,
then you're going through the same thing.
Yeah, then you're going through
you're going through the same thing, and you have a really good of that thing.
Yeah. So yeah,
I mean, no one runs from that position. No one runs with the ball better than that guy. So yeah, I think they get this thing done. I hate that he got hurt, especially with him betting on himself. But yeah, I think
I got one for you, staying on the quarterback theme. So at the beginning of the year, if I asked you this question, you might have me checked for some sort of breakdown, okay? Because the 49ers were at least considering trading Jimmy Garoppolo. Now,
Wisely did not.
It probably had a major injury last week, 7 to 8 weeks to recover. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll be able to play. There's an outside shot he could play in the playoffs, but really, their season hinges on Mr. Irrelevant of the draft. Okay, the last player taken, Purdy from Iowa State, helping this team get through the rest of the season and the playoffs. Can they do it?
I would say yes. More so a possibility than a whole bunch of other teams that would have found themselves in this situation. I'm willing to bet that there's something that went on behind the scenes, maybe going on behind the scenes with Kyle Shanahan and maybe some of the brass. for the San Francisco 49ers. I do have this feeling, Emil, that he probably wanted a Mac Jones because Mac Jones is his kind of guy to run his offense. And maybe he got overruled with the Trey Lance. So Trey Lance going down was not that big of a deal for Kyle Shanahan. I also feel like maybe a big reason why Jimmy Garoppolo was not dealt was because of Kyle Shanahan, because Jimmy Garoppolo is his kind of a guy, a distributor. What you have in Brock Purdy is a distributor. And he has he has this major component that I like in NFL quarterbacks, something that I have found them to be, I have found this.
I know what you're going to say.
Element in a lot of guys that have been successful in this league. And that is, he was a 4-year starter at the college level. Guys
played a lot of college football.
He's a mature quarterback. And I don't just mean, he doesn't go have bar fights. It's.
Well, you know what this reminds me of a little bit? And I tend to agree with you. And I'm going to give you credit because at the beginning of the year, I'm going to be the first one to admit it. You called what I'm going to say, and I was not confident. Feels a lot what happened to my Cowboys when Prescott got hurt. Everybody wrote him off, and they bring in a guy who takes care of the football. And amazingly, this season, the Cowboys and 49ers are built very similarly. They get after the passer.
Yes.
Very deep on defense, very deep in the running at the running back position.
Yes.
So I think if Dallas went 4-1 and honestly played very well in the game they lost at Philly once they got through the first quarter with their backup quarterback, and I think the 49ers can do very similar type of things.
Yeah, and I don't think Brock Purdy is a game manager type. This guy will make hard throws. He'll rip it out there, and he looked comfortable and confident against the worst type of team that you want to see your third guy come in against. It's a Miami Dolphins team that pressures you like no other team in the NFL. And he stood in there and made the throws that he needed to make. A couple errors early, but battled back from that, didn't go in the tank. So this guy could have easily have been a starter for the San Francisco 49ers. If they would have dealt, I'll say this, if they would have dealt Jimmy Garoppolo, yes, and there was some kind of a competition in camp between Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, like a legit competition, he might have won the job. This is a Kyle Shanahan kind of guy, and there's a really, really good team around him. So, yes, to answer your question.
And I'll tell you something else, not to get off, it's a whole other subject, but I think this week, you just mentioned the Dolphins. I think it's a very big game for the Dolphins this week because
mentally speaking,
they were shown to have some, when you get a team's third string quarterback, you're supposed to win the game at that point.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying, Emil, but you know what I say about those situations. A guy comes in off the bench and you literally have no book on him. And he doesn't even have a book on himself. And they tend to take chances that first week. And you're just not, unless it's a really incompetent guy that lacks the physical skills.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's not a lot of film. I get it.
It's a tough deal. I know that as a guy that's coached defense and we played a game once against a team that had one of the best quarterbacks in the county. And he got hurt that week in practice. And everyone was like, and I was like, no. And they had a receiver line up there at quarterback and ran. What was the term for that back then that the Dolphins did? They ran Wildcat the whole game. Yeah. I had a problem, and I, on the surface looked like a bad coach, but I'm like, we didn't prepare for this here.
No, so, I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, listen, before we hand out winners, ask me something else.
Who, Emil, would be your coach of the year if you were giving that award today?
At this point, I'd probably give it to Sirianni from the Eagles. I mean, it's hard for me to veer away. I know they had a good season last year, but it's one thing to be 10-7, not win your division, get into the playoffs. It's another thing when you're on, and again, I don't have the benefit of knowing how the last 5 weeks end up. But at this point, this guy's team sitting at 11-1. It's hard for me to make a case for somebody else.
If I was doing it today, I would tend to agree with you. If the question you just asked me played out in the affirmative, like I said it could happen, and it ended up being I don't know when they give out this
They
award.
give it's a regular. I don't think they wait for the playoffs. So, it's a regular season type of
Emil, I
award.
would really think about going Kyle Shanahan. Who else in this league is going to advance, play well, get into the playoffs, be a threat, be any kind of a strong team with their third string NFL?
Well, how about this? I didn't even consider this one, but what if the Seahawks finish in the playoffs? I mean, at the beginning of the year, most people had the Seahawks as going for a top 5 pick.
Yes, definitely. Something to consider.
He
did it his way.
He did it his way. Nobody saw that coming. I mean, come on, beginning of the year. If you said to somebody, hey, we'll be sitting here in December and the Seahawks will be one game out of first place in the NFC West, people would have had you see a psychiatrist.
Yeah, another round of shots for that guy because
yes,
we'll just finish him off. So yeah, right now Sirianni, but
yeah,
if the 49ers look strong at the end of the year, man, I really think Kyle Shanahan, and of course,
and there's some blatant, another guy who's a viable candidate. Where as we talk this through, the Vikings head coach.
Yes, what's his name?
I don't know.
Right.
He's like.
We had no reason to.
What's your wife's name, Mrs. Wilson?
Yeah,
I know his wife's name. It's a joke.
Yeah, so we'll see how this thing plays out. Definitely an interesting question.
You ready to hand out some winners here? You want to go first?
We can roll into these winners.
Let me recap. Last week you were good. I was not. You had 2 winners out of 3. Of course, we only give out 3. He had the Giants. Plus 2.5. They played to a tie. That makes him a winner. A tie. Those things were supposed to go away years ago, but no. You had a great pick on the Lions. The Lions just absolutely manhandled the Jags 40-14. And by the way, don't look now. The Lions have won 4 out of 5, and had they beaten Buffalo, and they could have on Thanksgiving Day, they're on a 5-game winning streak if that had happened. So nice there. And then somehow. You took a team in the Texans who did not surrender a touchdown on defense and still lost the game by double digits.
I wasn't even mad at the end of this other than I got what I deserved. That's how I felt.
I don't want to jinx my Cowboys, but that's one bad football team coming to Dallas this week. Anyway, you were 2-1. You're 25-13-1 getting it done. Me, I'm 1-2. I took the Giants. That was my lone winner. I took the Titans.
That?
The Titans were throwing. I mean, A.J. Brown was getting even on Sunday.
A.J. Brown got a guy fired this week.
Yes, he did. So I took a loss. And then I took the Dolphins, who I really thought would just show up in that game and play better. They lost.
A good game there for a moment.
Yeah, I was there a little while, but 1-2. I'm 24-14-1. So still good. I'm a game behind you. You can go first.
I will indeed go first. Speaking of team that fired their general manager, Tennessee, Emil, got embarrassed this week. They have to respond. If they don't respond, Tennessee is I feel like in some trouble here. This is back-to-back losses. You're coming off of a loss to the Cincinnati Bengals at home. You go to Philadelphia and get completely trounced by the Eagles, and handled by your ex-player that you didn't want to pay that money to. You've got to step up now and respond if you're Tennessee, and this is the kind of opponent you would do that against. It's a divisional game. Jacksonville's coming to town. You can't lose a divisional game at home against not the last place team, because Houston has nailed down that spot, but against Jacksonville, a perennial losing program. You can't respond with what's happened the last 2 weeks with a loss against.
Well, that's like Santa Claus coming to town if you're the Titans.
Yeah, I'm almost a little bit concerned at the line being 3.5, but then I remember the kind of brand of football that Tennessee plays. It doesn't lend itself for them being a huge favorite.
No.
So I'm gonna take Tennessee here as a 3.5 point favorite in this game and say they get off the schneid here a little bit and play some really good football. I believe in Mike Vrabel. I'm gonna slide on now to something on the late end of things. Seattle taking on Carolina. The Seahawks are at home. Carolina coming in, Emil, off of a rare thing in that town known as a win. At no point in this season have they been able to string together back-to-back wins. They got that win a couple of weeks ago and then went into a bye. I'm not sure how they handled that bye. I don't know how motivated those players are. They may have got missing for an entire week and didn't think about anything having anything to do with football. I can't see this team putting together back-to-back wins, with the second one being at a playoff contender like Seattle. Yes, Seattle got a big win last week. I don't think they're going to, go kick their feet up. They're going to go and finish the deal here against Carolina. And I think we are, what are we at? 3.5?
4. We're at 4, but I don't think that's going to matter. I agree with you on this one. I think this one gets out of control.
Yeah, I think they handle their business there. Yeah, Sam Darnold looked good last week. They have film now. That's how that's going to work.
Yes.
Your Miami Dolphins that you put your faith into last week up against what could potentially be the best team in the NFL at the moment had to stay out west. And they've been out in California the whole week. I don't know how well that sits for them there. You did say it. Some holes got opened up, and there's some things to exploit. And, a guy like Justin Herbert could do that. And, I don't know what the mental and physical state is going to be of the Dolphins, but they have a Sunday night game at SoFi.
And a very disrespectful line, by the way.
Yeah, yes, you could indeed say that. They're laying a field goal. I probably thought they would be a 1-point favorite in the game, although the Chargers have been uneven. They've been an up and down team. They come into this game off of a loss, Emil, against a divisional opponent, and either they respond here or they probably kind of slide off to the wayside. So they've only won one of their last 4 games, but there've been some tough games there, and 3 of them have been on the road. They're happy to be back home. The Dolphins have not dried themselves in their own towel for a whole week. I don't know what that's going to feel like for them lining up. So I'm going to take the Chargers as an underdog at home.
So let me recap this. Chad's got the Titans minus 3.5 over the Jags. He's got the Seahawks to lay one on the Carolina Panthers. The Seahawks are giving 4, and he's taking the Chargers at home, grabbing 3 points against his hometown Miami Dolphins.
There you go.
Okay, you know where I'm going first? A big grudge match inside the NFC East. We got the Eagles on the road. You're a New York guy. It's where you grew up.
Yeah.
Eagles, Giants, those two cities do
I'm
not
so interested in because I had this on my radar as a potential pick. I want to see where you're going on
These
this.
two cities don't like each other. And I'm going to tell you something. I think they're getting a little, they're building now some equity into the Eagles lines because they're 11-1. But I'm telling you, the Giants are a winning football team. They're not the most talented team. They're not, but they're well coached. They're 7-4-1, and they're a home underdog by a touchdown against a rival. If that doesn't motivate the Giants, their season could be in jeopardy. I'm not saying they have to win.
They're 7-4-1 football team, so they're going to feel good about themselves. But yes,
they better play well in this game. I mean, because they should come out with their hair on fire. I'm grabbing the Giants +7 here.
Good, squeeze them tight.
I sense sarcasm. You don't like my pick?
No, love it. That was pretty close to being mine.
Here's one that I find where I think the team will notice the line and feel disrespected, and I'm going to take them. Listen, I just said how well the Lions are playing, and they are. They've won 4 out of 5. They could be on a 5-game winning streak. They lost by a field goal on Thanksgiving to Buffalo. But you're the Minnesota Vikings. You're 10-2, and you open your paper after practice one day or your phone, because they're young kids now. I forget papers are done. And you see that your team is an underdog against the Lions?
I think, Emil, there's something going on there in terms of who's going to play in this game for Minnesota. I think that has had something to do with...
Of course, a little bit, but still. I mean, I'm going to take the Vikings are 10-2. They got to win the game. I mean, I know the Lions are playing better, but come on, man. They played the Jags.
Maybe they've gone a little. Maybe they went a little too far. It's 2 points too. By the way, is that what
2 points? Okay, I'll gladly grab 2 points. Thank you. An extra half point. You never know when you need that.
Gotcha.
And then finally, I'm heading back out west. We just talked about this team on our earlier segment, and I look up. And did you watch the Monday night game?
Not really.
Good. You didn't miss anything. I happened to turn it on with about half a quarter left, And I watched, and amazingly, okay, there was only one way the Saints could lose this game, and they did it. They were up 16-3 with 5-something left in the game. They had a 3rd and 1 on the Bucks 40. Okay. They passed the football. I was tired. I had woken up from like a little bit of a drowsy nap, and I was rubbing my eyes to make sure that I wasn't. All you have to do is run the ball. If you get the first down, the game's essentially over. If you
all
don't,
these days, man, that's how it's played.
Yep, 40 seconds run off the clock. They ended up losing that game with 3 seconds left. Brady scored. That's 2 games this year that he's pulled out, a 45-year-old guy against the Saints and the Rams earlier. The Buccaneers are just not a good.
Script. You didn't see that they met in a tunnel and Vince McMahon had written an ending to the game and they just followed it.
Listen, I'm laughing, but the Bucks, their record says 6-6. This is not a good football team at this point, okay? They're a couple Brady miracles away from having their season be over.
Hey, I'm 3 losses away from one of my big predictions.
Yes, you are, and I'm telling you what.
San Francisco, Cincinnati, and then I think it's going to fall on the shoulders of my son's team to get me good on it.
It might, because I'm telling you what, I think this is a very bad matchup. After that Monday night game, short week, they got to fly across the country to San Francisco. The line is low because of the fact that San Francisco's got their 3rd string quarterback, which we spent time talking about.
People are really underestimating that guy.
Yes. I'll take the 49ers -3.5. Do you have the same number?
I do. Yes.
Yes. I really will be shocked if they don't win this game by 10 points.
All right. Wrapping this thing up. He likes the New Yorkers, the Giants, a team he's faded, I think, a little bit too much in the past. But anyway, likes them in their big battle against Philly. No one goes against their state's teams like Emil.
Like me.
But anyway. Yes, a pick I highly agree with. He has taken the Giants as a touchdown underdog at home against the mighty Philadelphia Eagles, who they might be putting a little too much dip on their chip. He's taking Minnesota as a shocking shocking road underdog to the fighting Detroit Lions, who, Emil feels like they might be getting ahead of themselves here. And then he's got the San Francisco 49ers with their 3rd string quarterback. Who's the backup? Did they sign someone this week?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure they had
the safeties that played high school quarterback jump in there. Anyway, he likes the San Francisco 49ers laying only 3.5 against the visiting Tampa Bay Bucks in this one. All right, and that wraps things up for us here. Man, we hit it all. A 10-pack of bowl games from me, a 10-pack of bowl games from Emil. We gave you our award-winning NFL picks, and we throw some really good topics in there for you. We have filled your plate, and I hope before you leave that we have done enough for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening to us streaming online on Apple Podcasts, or that is what else do we listen to? Spotify, Anchor, whatever you're choosing here to listen to us on the show. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And you're watching us on YouTube, definitely hit the subscribe button there, because not only do I do this show, I've got a lot of great videos here. So as you head through out there, you're going to see a lot of those good ones. Hit the bell, man. You don't want to miss out on the next good one like this. All right. Bowl season is upon us. NFL's getting down to the nitty gritty, and I'm glad you guys spent that time here with
Enjoy the weekend.
That's it. Definitely enjoy your weekend. For Emil Calomino, I am Chad Wilson. Thanks for listening and watching the Gridiron Stud Show. We'll see you guys and be here next week.